Welcome to this special presentation, which explores a possible path toward peace in the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. This video is a creative template envisioned by Nada Pezeshkzad to illustrate how dialogue, enforceable agreements, and international guarantees might be structured to end hostilities and save lives. It is not an official proposal by any government, nor does it represent the policies of any state. Instead, it is intended as a tool to imagine, inspire, and promote the vision of sustainable peace. Over the next few minutes, we will follow a simulated forum in Ankara, where delegates from Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, and India convene, and 5 reporters document the process, the challenges, and the historic possibilities that arise when nations choose negotiation over conflict. Officials who only months ago spoke across battle lines were now talking across conference tables. Observers described the atmosphere as one of brothers and sisters long separated, rediscovering the possibility of coexistence.
The Ankara Peace Forum was inaugurated this morning with solemn words of welcome, emphasizing that this summit is not about rhetoric, but about saving lives. Delegates from Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, India, China, the European Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States, together with UN observers, began the first plenary session before dividing into 4 working subcommittees. Their mission over the next 5 days is to turn a fragile framework into a binding, enforceable structure for peace, covering border security, economic measures, legal guarantees, and humanitarian reconstruction. The tone was measured but determined, recognizing that the lives of countless young men and women hang in the balance.
As the first day concluded, an unexpected sense of camaraderie emerged among the delegates. Officials who only months ago spoke across battle lines were now talking across conference tables. Observers described the atmosphere as one of brothers and sisters long separated, rediscovering the possibility of coexistence. While disagreements remain, this human connection, informal, personal, and sincere, laid the foundation for the hard negotiations ahead. Day 2 focused on technical negotiations within the 4 subcommittees. The Border and Security Group debated the scope and authority of a proposed international peacekeeping force. Ukrainian delegates pressed for clear, automatic enforcement if Russia were to violate the agreement, while Russian delegates emphasized protections for sovereignty. Meanwhile, the Economic Subcommittee tackled sanctions relief and the phased release of frozen Russian assets. Delegates examined mechanisms to ensure compliance, including an interest flow to Ukraine for reconstruction and conditional tranches for Russia. By the day's end, negotiators agreed that a workable blueprint for enforceable peace was beginning to emerge. The 3rd and 4th days were intense, filled with marathon drafting sessions. One breakthrough came when negotiators crafted a formula for Russia to abstain from vetoing UN Security Council resolutions tied to the treaty, a first in international diplomacy. Tensions ran high on financial mechanisms. Ukraine advocated faster release of interest for reconstruction, while Russia sought guarantees on principal disbursement. Yet despite these disputes, compromise formulas were drafted, balancing economic pressure, international law, and enforceable deterrence. These sessions demonstrated that even the most intractable issues could be addressed when all sides commit to dialogue. On the 5th day, the forum culminated in the presentation of the Ankara Communiqué. For the first time since the outbreak of the war, delegates put forward a balanced package of enforceable agreements. Territorial compromise. Ukrainian parliamentary representatives, in a heartrending yet historic decision, accepted the loss of Crimea, Zaporozhye, and Kherson to Russian administration, while securing the full return of Luhansk and Donetsk to Ukraine. UN security guarantees. Russia agreed to waive its veto power in all UN Security Council cases relating to Ukraine's sovereignty, security, and water rights, placing these matters under the judgment of the broader international community. Deterrence against aggression. Russia's frozen assets would be permanently confiscated if the UN determined that Russian forces attacked international peacekeepers. Gradual asset release. Should peace be maintained for 1 full year, Russia's frozen assets would begin to be returned in phased installments. Demilitarization zone. Both sides committed to removing major military formations within 500 kilometers of their shared border within 3 months. Sanctions relief. All international sanctions on Russia would be lifted upon verifiable compliance. Legal adjustment. The International Criminal Court's ruling against President Vladimir Putin would be set aside on the grounds that policy decisions during the war were attributed to the Kremlin's collective apparatus rather than solely to the head of state. Following the announcement, representatives of key international stakeholders voiced their reactions. European Union. We commend the courage of both sides and stress that strict compliance and monitoring will be essential for lasting peace. United Kingdom. This agreement represents a delicate balance. Our support for Ukraine's sovereignty remains steadfast, alongside commitment to enforceable guarantees. United States, we stand ready to back this framework with diplomatic and financial mechanisms to ensure its implementation. China. We welcome a negotiated solution and encourage continued dialogue to preserve regional stability. India. India supports peace through dialogue and constructive compromise, recognizing the importance of humanitarian and economic considerations. Though not yet a final treaty, the communiqué represents the most serious attempt at peace since 2022. Delegates emphasized that success will be measured not in signatures, but in compliance with these provisions.
We conclude our coverage of the Ankara Peace Forum with a development of historic significance. It has now been confirmed that on December 25, 2025, President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine and President Vladimir Putin of the Russian Federation will meet face-to-face for the first time since the outbreak of war. The purpose of this meeting is clear: to formally and bindingly accredit the treaty framework developed here in Ankara. This is not a symbolic handshake, but a turning point when two leaders, backed by their parliaments and bound by unprecedented international guarantees, will determine whether this conceptual framework transforms into enforceable peace. From Ankara, this has been our continuing coverage of a template for a possible peace initiative, a vision of negotiation, deterrence, and hope. History is still being written, and we will be here to follow it as December 25th approaches.